if everyone will take a seat, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, April 19th, 2021, to order. Up first, we have Pastor Kevin Went of Grace Lutheran. Pastor.
Grace Lutheran Church, praise for our city and its leaders, and I'm honored to pray with you this evening. We pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, from you comes all rule and authority over the nations and states and cities of the world, for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of those who do well, for order and for justice. We humbly ask you to graciously regard these, your servants in our city of Destin, these who make, administer, and judge the affairs of this city. Look with mercy upon them and grant them to bear the authority you've given them according to your command. Enlighten and defend them, give them wisdom and understanding that under reasoned and peaceable governance your people may be guarded and directed in righteousness and peace. Protect and prolong their lives that we with them may show forth the praise of your holy name. We pray this in the name of him who is fully God, born of a virgin, fully man, to obediently live the perfect life, to pour out his innocent blood, the perfect sacrifice, to graciously rise from the dead, the perfect resurrection and life, your Son and our Savior from sin, ascended to heaven, and to return the last day to judge the living and the dead, Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you and the Spirit, together one God, now and forever. Amen.
Up first, agenda approval. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda that they would bring before the council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Vote is unanimous, so moved. First is the approval of the minutes of March 1st, 2021 regular city council meeting.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion,
I'll second.
and I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none? Press the button, Mr. Schmidt. Thank you, sir. Vote is unanimous, so moved. All right, we have a proclamation that I'm just going to read from here. It's about the Arbor Day celebration. We have Arbor Day coming up. We're going to celebrate Arbor Day at the dog park like last year, and we get to plant another tree. Looking forward to that. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, reduce heating and cooling cost, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property value, they enhance the economic vitality of business areas and beautify our communities, they are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, Mayor Gary Jarvis, on behalf of the Destin City Council, do hereby proclaim April 29, 2021 as Arbor Day in the city of Destin. And all citizens, we are urged to support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and that further, all citizens are urged to plant trees to gladden hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. So done this 19th day of April, 2021. And at this time, you guys want to come on up? Yep. You can say a few words. You have the floor.
Mayor. Yeah, just a question. I'm not sure who put together the program, if that was staff or the committee, but please check the spelling of Weidenhammer on the program. It's not spelled correctly.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we'll make sure of that.
Mike?
I keep forgetting. I used to never forget till Mr. Destin got on the council. He's teaching me bad habits. Teaching me bad habits, Captain Dewey. All right. Up first, public comments of agenda items. They're not public hearings, and we do have a couple public hearings today, so reserve those comments for the public hearing portion of the meeting, and any and all matters not on the agenda. So like I said, I'm going to look up first. Mike, I know you waved your hand, so come on up first, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike Buckingham, 510 Calhoun. I was asked to come up and give you all an update on the Melvin Heritage Park, on the progress of where we're at and where we're headed. We have had a big concrete pour last Monday for the footers for the foundation, and there were some concerns of the footer material. So we've had it tested, and the test has come back negative. It has failed, which is a good thing we caught it now, because that's the foundation of the building. I spoke with the contractor this afternoon, and he's aware of all the updates, and he's going to get back with me tomorrow to get some kind of an idea of where we're headed next and get a avenue of moving forward with this.
Hey, Mike? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you were.
How do we get to that point? I'm not a construction expert, but how do we get to that point of pouring the wrong material, or how do we get to the point of a failed footer?
Good question. Average, when you do a pour, unless you're paying attention and looking to see what's being poured, you don't catch it. You get a test, they get a cylinder test, they take a sample from the truck before the truck starts to pour, and they're able to test that to see if that meets what the requirements are. In this particular incident, it did meet, but that truck was at the top of the hill. And before the truck came down the hill, once the truck got down the hill, they added too much water to it, to the mix, and they shouldn't have mixed any water to it. And when I walked up, I'm the one that caught it. I saw it coming out of the hose, and I said, this isn't good. And we shut it down for a few minutes to find out what was going on, and they insisted on it was fine and finished the pour, and then from then on out, we started finding more and more issues with it.
Dr. Ramsel?
I guess I was just, when you say the footer was wrong, are you talking about the material itself wasn't correct, or the soil that you're putting in wasn't to the correct specs in order to substantiate the weight of a structure?
The soil was perfect. The soil was tested, it was compacted. It was what we call keep it wet. So when you do introduce concrete to the soil, it doesn't suck the moisture out of the concrete immediately. So the soil was fine.
Or-
Well, it started when they added water to the material when they shouldn't have. They tried to loosen it and make it easy to move it.
Where does that leave us at the moment, Mike, without, or should we just wait?
Hopefully, wait for the contractor tomorrow to give me a call and find out what what his plan of action to solve the problem. But the footers will have to be removed and replaced.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think that we just have a process to work through. As with any construction project, sometimes there is work that is not up to the specifications of the engineer of record. So we'll get with the engineer of record, get with Mike, get with city staff, city engineer, everyone. We'll get organized and determine where to go from here.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
All
I
right,
got a question, man.
go ahead
I'm
there,
sorry.
Mr. Braden.
You said the footers failed. How many different ways, or is it just one way that they tested them to fail, or what all was done?
To test it? Well, in this case, in this particular case, I noticed immediately the next day that the footer was cracking very unusually. I mean, concrete's known to crack, but this was cracking very bad. So I made a phone call to the city manager, Lance, and told him what I had seen and asked him if it would be okay if I did some further testing, and he said, you do whatever you feel is necessary. So the next step was the first step was noticing the cracks. The second step was, well, let's do some cores on it and let's check the depth of the footer. And once we check the depth, then we'll be able to take those cylinders and we'll be able to do more testing on them to see what they break at, which is a standard way of testing concrete. When we did the 4 bores in it, we found out that they ranged from, it's supposed to be a minimum of 12 inches. One was 12 inches, one was 9.5, one was 9, and one was 8. So when you have a footer, it's 8 inches, 9 inches, when it's supposed to be 12, that's a second no-no. And then obvious today was 7 days, which they have to have a minimum of 7 days to do the first test, to do a compression to see what it pops off at. And that's when we found out that it failed again, that failed, so.
All right, we'll just get our city engineer and our staff, and, I know you're working
That's what
with
we're working
everybody.
with.
And we'll just wait and go, come up with a process, and you guys can bring that back to us.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mayor, I have one comment, and I want to commend the city manager for having Mr. Buckingham oversee the job. And as Kyle said, there are procedures that are in the contract that tell us how to address it, and I am confident that the contractor wants to do the job and do it right. And if what's even doubly better is our city manager was able to get Mr. Buckingham to work and not get paid, and I think we need to renew that contract.
You got it, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Mayor, at closing, I understand there's going to be some issues brought up with the Destin High School tonight, and I just wanted the council to know that I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up. Come on. Come on up. Don't be bashful. Yeah, as far as you and Jimmy, we'll deal with that during the city manager's report. You get a special opportunity. Now back to public comment. Anyone else from the middle? Come on up. And then I'll look over here next, and then I'll look over here. Of course, I don't think there's anybody over there that wants to get up in front of this microphone anytime soon. Oh, Shep might. Good to see you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Michelle Malasong, 111 Gulf Winds Court. I'm here regarding a no trespass sign that suddenly appeared at the end of the pathway to the beach on Gulf Winds Court. It appeared last week. No one seems to really know how this happened. It appears now to be on parcel B, but I haven't gone out there and investigated it. But I'm hoping that the city council can give me some answers on that, because my understanding is parcel B is owned by the state and controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. But I'm sure the Army Corps engineer didn't go out there and just stick one no trespassing sign at the end of Gulf Winds Court beach pathway. Then Peter Boss's name was thrown around. So if Peter Boss did it, then I'm wondering what control he has, because like I said, I was told that Army Corps of Engineers controls it. We're being discriminated against, we're being targeted, and we need some answers, because this is becoming a nightmare, because I'm not going to go cross the sign and get arrested for trespassing, and I'd like to know who placed it there and who is threatening to trespass me. Does anybody have an answer or direct me
Parcel
get some
B
answers?
Parcel B is owned by Aqua Development, which is an entity, obviously not a governmental entity, but there are easements and jetty support systems that lie underneath it that do fall within the Corps of Engineers realm. So I'm not sure, from that perspective, Mr. Baumann or Ms. Kopp, I'm not sure what y'all might be able to add to that. Is it blocking your access? Is
Yes,
that-
it was the only sign placed directly at the end of our beach access off of Gulf Winds Court, the only one.
Okay.
And it just appeared pretty much overnight.
Okay, we're looking, I see our staff is conferring. Take a swing at it, Kyle.
Sure. I'm not familiar with the specifics of the issue. I don't know if there is a dedicated public beach access or if it's privately platted through the neighborhood or what, so it's hard for me to comment at this time. And I don't know about any active code enforcement investigations or anything into the matter either. Not that our code enforcement officers would be able to comment if there's an active case to begin with. So I just don't have a whole lot of information at this time.
This access has been being used for over 40 years, and all of a sudden, one sign appears only at that location.
Joey, I was going to ask Joey to address that. Joey, are you familiar? You got to be familiar with that area because you're getting called there.
Yeah, we are currently, we do have some cases that we're investigating right now.
I have not been told of a case investigating that no trespass sign.
Well, you just told us, ma'am, so we'll look into it. Okay,
Okay?
we don't have an answer right now, is basically what it
Make
boils
sure
down to.
that they have your email or email the city so someone has your email and can get in contact with you.
Because we need some answers. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, nobody up here today can answer that
now,
because
I
they're going to have to look
brought
into
it
it.
here so that it can get looked into,
Well-
so we can have some answers.
Our code enforcement has just been notified. Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Mayor, can we ask the code enforcement to bring an answer back to us at the next meeting?
Hopefully Joey can answer that faster than that. Hopefully he can give us a heads up via email when he looks into it. How about that?
If that works, that's even better.
All right? Well, just so we can get an update. And then if there's bigger issue than that, I guess then we'll have to deal with that at the next council meeting. Joey, does that sound good? You'll look into it and get back to just email council@citycouncil.org?
Roger that. I'll take care of it.
Thank you, sir. Next up, public comment. Going once, going twice. Don't see anybody there. Do you have anybody queued up on the webinar? How about you, Ray? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. I just want to remind everybody that that's watching via the webinar or email, text message, or y'all are here in the audience that there'll be another opportunity for public comment at the. All right, you got it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and to our residents who are watching our live stream. First of all, in any case, any viewers are wondering where Lance is this evening, he is out on a family vacation and a well-deserved family vacation, and he will be back next week. In the meantime, staff continues to work hard to move the business of the city forward. With that said, that leads us to our first agenda item of the night. This monthly item provides enhanced transparency to our financial operations as well as our project management. We have a capital project status update by our finance director, Ms. Crystal Strickland.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Here we have our monthly capital project status report. As you'll see from the report, the projects are progressing forwards. The beach acquisition is the only one that's been put on hold momentarily until we have a new closing date for that third and final property, but 2 out of the 3 have been purchased. And I am available for any questions here with staff.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Continue on, sir.
Actually, I do have one
Oh,
question.
go ahead, ma'am.
The vintage sidewalk, what is that?
When the vintage near Winn-Dixie was built, they gave us $290,000 to build a sidewalk, and that is a question that should be, the timing on when that sidewalk will be built will be answered by our community planning group at some point in the future. And that was potentially budgeted for next year, but it's on here because this is part of the 5-year capital project plan.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming assume nothing, right? I would think that the sidewalk would be done as soon as they have completed construction. Is that the plan, or is that just sort of the general idea?
Yeah, is there someone here from community planning that could answer this question? Or maybe not this evening, because oh yeah?
So that is actually when Maddie Kelly extension, and I don't want to say too much here because I don't know the exact details, but it's not the completion of Vintage Destin, it's the completion of, I believe, the Maddie Kelly extension. It'll be their portion of it on that roadway.
Okay, well, I'll look forward then to an update from community development as it moves forward. Thanks.
Press on, sir.
All right, next is our operations financial report. Again, Ms. Crystal Strickland.
So again, before you, we have the monthly financial report for operations. As you know, this is always within approximately a month in arrears because, for example, so this report is through March 28th, as most of the invoices for services completed this is for February 28th. Most of the invoices for March are still coming in. And some differences that you'll see in this report from previous ones is that our estimated revenues have gone down a bit due to the uncertainty on the final beach closure and therefore uncertainty on the timing when we'll receive the county's portion towards that final beach purchase. Other than that, everything else is still going along as anticipated, and we continue to have approximately $1.5 million in the unassigned account. And I am available for any questions.
Go ahead, Mrs. Abraham.
I have a question on the Compass Intergov. It's being delayed. Is there an additional cost because of this delay that's going to be encompassed since the go-live is now May, June 2021?
None of the contracts have had any additional expenses added to them. So I think the IT director would be the one to tell us if there are any other additional expenses that are related to the delay. I'm not aware of any at this moment, though.
I'm not aware of any significant increases to that. Matt, are you on the line, and can you help us with that? You may not be online, I apologize. I'm not aware of any significant increases on that contract. It's just a time issue at this point. But if there are any increases, we'll certainly update council with that.
Any further questions? Seeing none, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Our next item is an item related to the water and sewer credits. This item will be introduced by our city attorney, Kyle Bowman.
Thanks, Webb. So as everyone knows, and I think is excited about, the Destin Charter High School will hopefully be coming online here in August and servicing the local community for high school age students, I think 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, right, Meyer? Starting in August. So as part of that, they have, of course, purchased some property, And the property is currently being renovated and will result in a more intensive land use that will impact the water and sewer system to a greater degree. When that happens, the city doesn't run its own municipal water and sewer service, so it's serviced by an independent company called Destin Water Users. When that happens, Destin Water Users requires the payment of certain impact fees to mitigate the increased intensity on their systems. The city over the years has accumulated a multitude of credits through purchasing property, resulting in less intensive uses to the water and sewer system. What can happen is a entity with credits can transfer those credits to a entity that will be required to pay impact fees to mitigate the payment of those impact fees. And so tonight, we have some other issues we're working through on this, and we have additional information we will be bringing forward to council. So we're not requesting any action tonight. However, we do have Myra Williams and Jimmy Nielsen here to discuss the matter a little bit further and introduce it for y'all.
Go ahead, Myra. Would you like to come up? Jimmy?
Hi, thank you. My name's Myra Williams, and I live at 312 Calhoun Avenue. And this evening, I'm here to simply ask that you support the transfer of those credits. In our due diligence, we met with Lockwood, and we learned of, the credits that are out there from the taps. So at this current point, we need about 14 water and sewer tap credits, ERUs. But I would also add that, thank you for your support all the way through. And I would like some consideration for phase 2, because this is the first renovation of the property at Grace Lutheran, is how we're going to start for the first 2 years. And then to complete the master plan, we need approximately double in terms of population and usage of water and sewage. But, I'm not an engineer, and so we would defer to Destin Water Users for them to give us the official amount that we might need and reserve those while we're here, because obviously we're in it, and we will have the high school for all 4 grades. So I appreciate your consideration of transferring those credits. Thank you.
Thank you, Myra. Mr. Nelson, just keep it on.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jimmy Nielsen. I've resided in Destin since 1983. I live at 740 Harbor Boulevard. I'm here asking the same as Myra did, that you consider this. I got word of the taps costing a lot of money, and they were really concerned they were going to have to go back and raise more capital. So the first person I called was Mr. Lockwood, and we had a meeting with people and found out that the city had all of these taps. And it was a natural that the city could donate the taps and they would not have to raise more money. So I'm asking you, and I'm thinking as an individual, if I was a council member, this is probably the most gratifying vote that you could really make from the standpoint of not spending taxpayer money into going to such an asset. When you think about this community now, we'll have a grade school. In 1987, when I was president of the chamber, we started working on a middle school, and that's available today. And now we have a high school, and I commend everybody in this community that made that damn thing work. It's amazing how it really happened. And when you think about these kids, these young men and women that are not going to have to go through this traffic situation to Fort Walton and to Niceville, and can be at that school learning and having fun in their own hometown. So I just close that when this comes to a vote, I hope you will see how important it is that you can give something and not cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
And Mr. Lockwood Warnett from Destin Water Users is here if the council had any technical questions you needed to ask him.
All right, thank you very much. And as Kyle said, we've got go through some procedures and processes, and the staff's going to bring back us a full report of what this all means, and then probably Mr. Nelson and Myra and Lockwood at that time will come up and answer any questions that will arrive out of that presentation.
Yeah, so just how this is going to work is probably in about a month or so, I would imagine at most, we'll bring back the formal item, and it will include a letter from the city to the high school where the city will formally transfer the credits, and if it's the council's pleasure, you can direct Lance or the mayor to execute that letter, and credits will be transferred at that time. And of course, we'll include some protections for the city and all of that. So that's just how it's all procedurally going to work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Mr. Webb?
All right, very good.
You're
Thank
back
you.
on the floor.
Next up, we have a
Thank you,
task order for consideration by council for our undergrounding contractor, Utility Consultants of Florida. We have Chef Wright, our electrical franchise legal consultant in attendance. In addition to Chef Wright, our city attorneys and councilmember Destin has been working hard on this top priority item for the city. This project will kick off, again, one of the top priorities for the city to underground our electrical lines and utility lines, which will harden and beautify our city. Mr. Bowman has been working on this along with Mr. Destin and Mr. Wright, and can give us some further background on this initiative.
Thanks again, Webb. Yeah, so just briefly, council members, you might recall, I believe it was about a month ago, we brought before you the master agreement between the city and Utility Consultants of Florida, who was the city's top-ranked bidder in an RFQ process. At that time, we stated that we'd be bringing a task order, which would do two things. One, it would actually describe the specific tasks that UCOF is obligated to perform. And two, it would obligate the city monetarily at that time. If you remember, the master agreement doesn't actually obligate the city monetarily, and it doesn't describe any specific tasks for UCOF. So this task order would do both those things and allow us to really hit the ground running, I think, on this undergrounding project. Any technical issues, we of course have our technical wizard, Chef Wright, here on all those matters. So Chef, I don't know if you have anything you want to say, but please feel free to add anything if you do.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm glad to be here. Very briefly, for context, this is the first real hard work task for us to do toward getting the underground project going. It's all part of the parallel process of negotiating a new franchise with Gulf Power and getting a sound underground facilities conversion agreement with Gulf Power. I'm working with two different attorneys, both of whom I've known and worked with for more than a decade at FPL. They're taking the lead on this. We have a draft of a franchise agreement that's in their court right now. I sent back some stuff asking for better terms for the city, and we expect to hear back from them. Could be any time, could be this week or next week. And separately, the other fellow is working on an underground conversion agreement. Gulf doesn't really have one. We've agreed in concept, he and I as attorneys, and that's all, but that as attorneys, we've agreed that the best construct will be to use the underground facilities conversion agreement that is in FPL's tariff. It's a sound agreement. I've seen it used a number of times for other clients of mine in FPL's service territory. This agreement with UCOF, Utility Consultants of Florida, will get us product identifying everything that needs to be done for phase one, the bridge to Main Street, identify the existing overhead facilities, what needs to be converted, not just electric, but also cable and telecom, and give us a conceptual phasing for the rest of the city. That'll probably change. This is probably a 6 to 8 year project. So phase 4 probably, when we get there in 2026, probably is not going to be what we think it is today, but it will give us a conceptual and hopefully a good definition of what phase 2 will be, because I've asked the Gulf FPL folks that our initial undergrounding agreement would cover both a phase 1 and a phase 2. But the context is to get Utility Consultants of Florida, Mark Porter and his crew, and their project manager is going to move here to run this project for them going. And the amount is well under the $250,000 that was budgeted. It's about 212 as specified here. And I'm happy to talk all night if you want me to.
Yeah, just
answer
don't
any
go,
questions.
just don't go away,
Yes,
Sam,
sir.
because I'm going to entertain a motion for this, and if there's any discussion, we'll call back upon you. So I'll entertain a motion for this document.
I'll move that city manager create executive task order 1 of the Destin Utility Undergrounding Project Management Agreement with Utility Consultants of Florida.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any further comments or questions based on this task order? Mr. Destin?
And I want to, first of all, thank Chef for the work he's been doing. This motion and the need to button down the franchise agreement kind of are a chicken and the egg, which comes first. Chef has been trying to bring pressure to bear so that Florida Power and Light or NextEra understand that we need to get the other issues settled, and we're beginning to come down to the time where it's critical to get it. And so hopefully, in the time frame of the next couple of months, that will be hammered out. Because if it's not, then the agreement we're voting on tonight has a problem. We will be going forward with a project that we don't have the ability to complete. So the franchise is very, very important, and we've got to move on it in a sooner rather than later time.
I'm excited about this, and I have full confidence in this fellow over here. Just gave us a briefing that he'll get the franchise agreement done as well. He's been at it nonstop the entire time I've been mayor. In fact, actually before. So we'll get it done. I have a motion and I have a second. Without further ado, the vote is unanimous. So moved. Thanks, sir.
Very good. Our next item for council consideration is somewhat related to our underground initiative. This is the support of a bill to consolidate utility poles, which is Senate Bill 1944 and House Bill 1567. NextEra Energy did reach out to the city for a letter of support for this. As provided in your packet, you will see that the background of information of these bills, and that also included the staff analysis of the information. The summary of this information is some of the goals of the underground initiative is to harden our critical electrical infrastructure as well as reduce our visual clutter. These bills help to do so. Basically what it does is it'd be a letter of support to help remove redundant poles. In some instances, you may have a utility pole that has cable or other telecom on it right next to an electrical pole. And basically, this would put some regulatory teeth to start consolidating those poles into one, which again helps to match the goals of our initiative to reduce the clutter, the visual clutter, as well as harden our infrastructure. So with that said, Mr. Sheffright is also here and may be able to shed some light on this if there are any questions, but this is to generate a letter of support for this bill and send it on to our legislatures.
Mayor, I'll make that motion. I move to authorize and direct the mayor and city manager to send the attached letter of support for S. Bill 1944 and House Bill 1567 to the state legislature.
I'll second. I would appreciate Jeff's opinion. I have not been able to speak with him on this particular item. Jeff, you have an opinion on where?
This legislation is definitely going in the right direction. There are a couple of passing references to undergrounding in the legislation. You know, if I were writing it, I would have it go further. I would have it give the jurisdiction to the PSC to fix problems where the utility goes underground as a hardening measure, as opposed to installing beefier poles in conductor as a hardening measure, which is what this really addresses. I would go farther, but it's April 19th. The session adjourns at the end of next week. I don't think that's going to happen this year. It's definitely going in the right direction. I'd like to see the PSC have the same regulatory teeth to require on reasonable terms that pole attachers go underground when the utility goes underground. That's something we can also address with an undergrounding ordinance, but that's a discussion for another night. It's going in the right direction. Thanks.
any other questions or comments based on this motion, the second? Seeing none, The vote is unanimous, so moved. I'll be glad to sign that one. I did a little research, and League of Cities is not opposing this either, so, there's not a home rule issue here.
All right, next item up is funding request. At our last council meeting, it was requested by council for staff to find potential funding options for the request by the Emerald Coast Fitness Foundation, as well as the Okaloosa County Water Sports Operators Coalition. As discussed at that meeting, if fulfilled, the funding request would provide $25,000 to the operations of the Emerald Coast Fitness Foundation, which is, some refer to it as the old YMCA, but it's definitely a different entity. And in addition, the Okaloosa County Water Sports Coalition is requesting $8,000 for a water safety video for water sports. So staff did do some digging through the budget, and some funding for the Emerald Coast Fitness Center could be transferred from our economic development and human services accounts, which have some unobligated funding remaining for fiscal year 2021. In addition, due to COVID, Council's travel fund, which currently contains $12,200 and some odd dollars, has been unused to date, and we're almost over 50% through the year. So we feel like that if council approves, that $8,000 could be transferred from that account to provide the contributions to that coalition to make that water safety video.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make the recommended motion, Mayor.
Got it. Go.
Second.
Well, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further comments from anyone on the council concerning this issue? Go ahead, Skip.
I know that when they came to us here a couple weeks ago, they said they were going to ask $25,000 from us and then $25,000 from three other entities. Do you know how have the others come forward and said they were going to support them as well, or?
I do not have that answer. However, I see a representative here. If y'all will entertain her at the microphone.
I'm Kathy Heapy with the Emerald Coast Fitness Foundation, the treasurer. I have gotten approval from the school district. I've been told it's okay. I haven't seen anything, though, finalized in writing. I keep trying to reach out to Cindy Gates. She doesn't reach back. And we are going to start with the city of Fort Walton Beach next week, now that their new council members have been sworn in. The Okaloosa County. The Okaloosa County Commission, and they said they would do it with the other.
I got one more. Mr. Braden.
It's not on this topic, Mayor.
Okay.
I have, this one's for staff. How is this $8,000 for this water sports video going to benefit the citizens of Destin?
Well, I know that, one of the things that we have been talking about, and we did Catherine was here, and Joey, we talked about the opportunity to provide additional safety video that is more in line with the Destin area, because the current videos out there are very non-specific, and so out of that, the coalition has been looking independently on this and looking how a more Destin-specific and more water sport-oriented video could help the area.
Is this something that's going to be played on the city's website or anything, or where's this video going to be used at?
I don't have any additional information on that. I have heard a couple of different things that it would be available on the web. I do see Johnny over there. Johnny, do you have any information you can help us on this?
Yeah, and I talked to Catherine about this, and she has full intention of not only putting on the website, but she had already talked with the producers of Beach TV to see about just offering this, because it's going to be for local. The crucial thing about running a boat is local knowledge, and I think that's what this is going to be geared towards. Would you like to speak to that, Johnny?
Yeah, the key thing is we're planning on giving it to the county and the city to use for whatever methods you guys want to provide. We're doing a 1 minute quick recap, and then a longer video to where they can kind of view it, get more details of it. We've been in contact with Beach TV. They're planning on putting it on there. I'm guessing Facebook or on y'all's website, you guys can put it on there. But the main targets is, of course, the rentals, but also to provide it to people that bring their boats from out of state that don't know our waterways and/or people that buy boats that's never been on boats.
Will y'all have, or do you know of anybody that in the delivery vessel that I know that you make these people watch this video. Is there any type of, question or quiz or something at the end of it to make these people actually watch the video?
So, right now, there's no way to make them watch a video. With one of the reservation systems that I'm using, there is a way to where we can kind of tag whether or not they've actually watched it or not. Or by clicking on it, on the link. If they didn't, then we can go further, say, hey, you guys need to watch this beforehand.
Okay. Yeah, I just think it'd be great to have it on the city's website or on Beach TV. I know that runs in a lot of the motels, and I hope they put something on that video to keep the people from plowing through the grass beds and stuff and tearing them all up, kind of educate them on that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be important. I know various council members are fairly active on social media. What I always do is daily I'll go to our city website. Like today we had yellow flags. I'll just post that on my social media, and I'd encourage the rest of the council members to continue doing that, because Catherine's done a tremendous job of offering this type of education process with Leave No Trace Behind, picking up your trash on the beach, the flag warning system, this soon-to-be video. So I think we can make this a team effort, because the more you do that, the more the public gets notified, and the fact that you're doing it with your advanced registrations will be real key, because that's when they're already excited, they can't hardly wait to come down, and so they get to see a video of what they're fixing to do. So I think it's going to be well received.
And Shane Reynolds said his goal is to have the navigational video that pretty much explains our waterways done by, his goal is by Memorial Day. So
when that's done, let's do a little presentation so we all can see it, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks, sure. Thanks, Johnny.
Staff will be happy to certainly promote this, and I think it's also, we've heard multiple times that we'd like to get people even before they get down here to see that video, because by the time they get down here into the dock, they're all excited, and so the more lead time, the better produced video will help us do so.
All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Ayes have it. So moved. On that vein, just reach out to Jennifer, make sure that that's included, part of one of her projects, because they've done a tremendous job. And that'll be something that'll be well received. Thank you.
And we'll also reach out to the county and their PIO, see if they can help us out.
All right, next, go ahead.
All right, next item is related to the city's floodplain map and development issues. This item will be introduced by our building official, Ms. Noelle Bell, and we have a presentation to provide.
Thank you, Webb. Good evening, council. Thank you for your time this evening and going through this video. City Council directed staff, James, if you go to the next slide, directed staff to determine how the new floodplain maps will affect development in Destin, and to bring any proposed changes to the current flood ordinance that would improve development in designated flood hazard areas. See attached, that would be the map that is included in your packet that shows where our current flood prone areas are. I don't know if James, can you skip to that map real quick? Oh, there you go. There you see the green represents the AE zones. It's not very dark on that map, and then there's a darker orange along the shoreline, which doesn't come out good on this map right here, but I think you have one in your packet, hopefully. All right. The new flood maps and the effects on development in Destin is kind of our approach here, and the proposed changes to the current flood ordinance in special flood hazard areas is where we're at. James, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah. So that was So right now, the design standards for the AE zones are buildings or structures in flood hazard areas, which A zone shall have the lowest floors elevated to or above BFE plus 2 feet, or the design elevation, whichever is higher. Next item under this standard is enclosed areas below the DFE shall be used solely for parking, building access, and storage. The third bullet is areas below DFE are provided with flood openings, which meet the requirements of 1 square inch opening for each square foot of enclosed area. Those are standard FEMA guidelines there. If enclosed area is used for parking, shall be enclosed with lattice, screening, or material that permits unobstructed flow of floodwaters. And then the next bullet is non-conversion agreement is required, and building access and storage can be no more than 200 square feet, and only 70 square feet can be used for storage. Those last 3 bullet items are pretty much Destin specific that were changed in our ordinance in 18. Now the design standards for the VE zone, which is your coastal beach area zone, is everything above plus, with the exception of flood vents. Buildings and structures must be elevated so that the bottom of the lowest structural horizontal member is 2 foot above base flood. And then the use of fill material for structural support is prohibited. Next. So our current challenges of these standards is 1, flood regulations and design standards are located in 2 different locations. One of the locations is located in the LDC, and the other regulation is in the Code of Ordinance. This, the LDC has the flood ordinance, and then the Code of Ordinance, we had a section there that provided technical amendments to the Florida Building Code, just to clarify those 2 areas. Number 2, the city's current flood design standards are as such. They're similar for both VE and AE flood zones. It's a one-size-kind-of-fit-all approach to floodplain management. However, it is important to note these areas are drastically different areas and should not share the same design characteristics. It allows fill material in the AE zone. This increases the chance of flooding for existing adjacent properties that are in low-lying areas. C, the current design standards is the most restrictive, can drastically change the physical and visual characteristics of a neighborhood. Although it may create the most protective environment possible for our residents, it can be restrictive and burdensome to development and or redevelopment based on the level of risk. Furthermore, the standards are not based on risk analysis feasibility study. So our solutions, or our proposed solutions to these challenges, number 1 are flood regulations and design standards located in the LDC only. So we want to remove the technical amendments to the building code out of the Code of Ordinance. So revise ordinance 1805 LC Land Code to include revised technical amendments that support the city's community rating system design standards. This will allow for all of the flood regulations and design requirements to be found in Article 11-.04.00 Floodplain Management Land Development Code. Number 2, design and designate our coastal A zones versus the non-coastal A zone elements. The A zones. Eliminate the use of fill material in A zones and revise non-coastal A design requirements. A, define and designate the coastal A zone per the city's comprehensive plan. Under the CRS program, these areas are subject to higher regulatory standards due to potential storm surge. The flood elevations were lowered on Holiday Isle when the new maps became effective. However, this area is more susceptible to storm surge. Staff proposes designating Holiday Isle and those areas already defined by the limited area of minimum wave action, which in other words we call the LIMWA line, as coastal A on the new flood maps. This area also represents 99% of the historical flood claims according to the report from Federal Emergency Management Agency. B, eliminate the use of fill material in A zones or designated low-lying areas. This will reduce flooding impacts to nearby properties. C, revise the 2-foot freeboard requirement for structures in the non-coastal A zone and use the flood design standards from the Florida Building Code, which requires a 1-foot freeboard or design flood elevation, whichever is higher. Note that will requiring amendment to the ordinance 20-01-PC, which establishes the higher design standards in the comprehensive plan of 2-foot freeboard. So where we're at, the advantages and the disadvantages. Let's start with the good points. The advantages are flood regulations will be located in LDC only. And make it a little user-friendly, everybody can find it in one place. Higher regulatory construction standards will be maintained in the designated high coastal hazard area, Holiday Isle, and of course it'd be the whole V zone, which is your right on the coast there, right on the shore. Coastal A zones will be designated in the design standards defined for coastal A and non-coastal A or AE zone. Utilize regulatory design standards based upon 1-foot freeboard requirements established by the Florida Building Code. This will help establish clear development and redevelopment standards and will allow for enclosed spaces, examples garages, to be designed below base flood elevation in designated non-coastal A areas. Because currently, our standards do not, unless you could want a 200 square foot garage, but then you have to have an entrance way up high, so it will help with that. Eliminate the use of fill material in AE zones or identified low-lying areas to reduce the potential risk of elevating the parcel, allowing water to displace onto adjacent parcels. And no decrease in our CRS's current rating. In summary, proposed changes will allow staff to evaluate risk and apply sound engineering and floodplain practices in designated special flood hazard areas. Our disadvantages. Perception of lowering standards in the AE zone. However, the design standards in AE zones will meet the Florida Building Code's 1-foot freeboard requirement for development or redevelopment in designated special flood hazard areas. Requirements of no fill material may increase construction cost and maintenance costs. In conclusion, the City of Destin is a Class 6 under the Community Rating System program with 2,110 points and currently is in a CRS cycle review. The proposed solutions to the challenges noted above will not negatively impact the CRS rating. The proposed solutions will maintain higher regulatory standards in coastal high areas, the VE and coastal A zones, while better defining the design standards for non-coastal A and AE zones. So staff seeks direction from council regarding whether to proceed with the proposed changes to ordinance 18-05-LC and 18-07-CC or maintain the current level of service for flood regulations. Is there any questions?
I have one that's probably on everyone's mind, so I'll ask it. What's this going to cost the average homeowner on Holiday Isle and any of the A zones, the coastal or the high-risk flood zones?
it shouldn't reflect any change in their current, what they're paying now. So, because it's not going to change it's not going to negatively impact our CRS rating as it stands right now. So it won't lower our points, and when, at this time, we don't know if we'll gain any points from it. But we won't go any less than we are right now.
Right, but if we go to the more defined regulatory language in the LDC, will it cost people to have to go back and change their buildings now in these zones? Or is
No.
it just new development?
Just new development.
Okay.
Yep.
I see I've got Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make the motion that we proceed with the proposed changes to ordinance 18-05-LC and 18-07-CC.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
I have a second. Is there any further comments? Mr. Destin? Oh, Mr. Smith, I got you first, and then I'll get Mr. Destin. Go ahead.
Sure, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to remember, Mr. Braden, I think we asked to have this come up tonight. I think it was in regards to maybe some properties in certain areas off of the Benning and down that area. But I think we were trying to find out what impact for the new developments by them having to follow these new regulations. How is that going to impact, I guess, the building when we start building to meet these new regulations? If that's going to be a bad thing for our neighbors. I'm not sure if that's what the goal of what you were trying to find out at that previous meeting, or if I'm just making something up right there. But I know there's a flood issue down there, and the citizen who's trying to build something has to build it to a very high level and high standard. It doesn't match the neighboring properties. And I didn't know if that's what our concern was, that we were trying to make it work for everybody, but maybe I was misunderstanding then. But I just want to make sure if that's not the case.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. This new floodplain map that came out, I guess, increased the height of the building again. So in some of these low-lying areas that we have, it's just not feasible to put a finished floor elevation of a house 6 or 7 feet above the road out in front of it. So it just gives a little bit more leeway and drops that height down in those low-lying areas a little bit.
Not only that, Rodney, but doesn't it prevent some people from wanting to bring in 50 loads of dirt and building their house up high, and all that runoff goes over and takes out their neighbors? Isn't that part of the changes that'll be in this one? So there'll be some net benefits outside of any cost increase or stuff like that.
Thank you.
I think we're just kind of customizing it to Destin's area, more or less.
Mr. Destin?
Yeah, we just wanted to ask, the lowering the freeboard requirement from 2 foot down to 1 foot, is that mitigating the prohibition on fill, or do you think those two in your mind are not connected?
They're kind of connected, if you will. I mean, we know that, you know, in the old part of Destin, back in the day when these old houses went in, they were kind of built kind of right at road level, and some are even lower than the road. So we don't want to impact them any more than they are now. And so minimizing the fill or no fill, and then lowering the level of foot. Granted, most of this area under the new map, some already went down another foot. So, you know, you don't, a new house being built next to you, you don't want to look out your window, you're down here and there's your neighbor way up there. It just doesn't fit the neighborhood. So we're trying to balance it out, if you will.
Okay, my other question is, since we are under a cycle review, you sounded very confident that we would not be downrated, and what is that confidence based on?
The cycle review is done every 5 years, and we're currently doing our cycle review under our old ordinance.
Oh, okay, so
Okay.
this won't even be in the cycle review?
Not
It'll be in
until the next
one.
cycle review.
Yeah, it'll be in the next one, okay.
Yes.
That was the questions that I had, thanks.
Questions? We have a motion, we have a second, and seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Sir?
Thank you. City Council at the last meeting on April 5th, this is in relation to the Zerby Calhoun Pedestrian Improvements Project, the boardwalk section. Council at the last meeting on April 5th had tabled this item, so additional information could be provided by staff concerning the sidewalk near Clement Taylor on Calhoun Avenue, as well as address some ADA questions. Staff has visited the site and is ready to provide some information to council. Mr. Michael Burgess, our Public Works Director, is here with additional information that was requested at the last meeting.
Thank you, Webb. Good evening, Mayor and Council. After the last council meeting on the 5th, the city engineer and the city engineering assistant and I visited the site, Clement Taylor Park, and looked at the possibilities of kind of pondering Councilor Schmidt's suggestion. So what I have in front of you this evening are 3 slides. What I've called option 1 is the original boardwalk as submitted a few weeks ago in the proposal to construct. That is a raised or an elevated boardwalk that would span the drainage swales pretty much on both sides of the Clement Taylor Park property and would provide a crosswalk across Calhoun Avenue closer to the lift station that DWU has down there. If you look on the left side of this picture, that is the 10-foot sidewalk that we'll be bringing in. The driveway that you see on the very left edge is the driveway for the wedding chapel / future fire station. Okay, James, can you roll it down to number 2? Okay, this is my incredibly terrible mock-up of what we've proposed as option 2. This will be a sidewalk that picks up at that same driveway that the wedding chapel future fire station will use. And it will extend an 8 to 10 foot sidewalk in and amongst the live oak trees, and then it will cross the driveway, and then it'll come out on the other side, and there'll be an angular pedestrian crossing with the enhanced visibility crosswalk, and then it'll also have 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons available for pedestrians to use when they're ready to cross. These 2 yellow strobes will start going off in both directions. And then lastly, okay, this is the crossing at the fire station. The 10-foot sidewalk, of course, this is an older aerial, but it will extend up the west side of Calhoun Avenue to that point, and then it'll extend across the street, again, using that visually enhanced crosswalk pattern. The issue with this one in particular is that the sidewalk on the east side of Calhoun is not part of the Zerby Calhoun Pedestrian Improvements Project, and as such, it's only 4 feet wide. I spoke to Councilor Schmidt earlier about some utility conflicts, storm sewer, and there's a head wall over there that directs storm water into under the road to the retention area on the northwest corner of this picture. But and that sidewalk is not it's in okay shape. It's not in pristine condition. And I gave the city engineer, he feels like an attorney sometimes, but the city engineer and I worked together to put together a bulleted list that's provided in your packet of the pros and cons of these proposals, limitations and challenges.
All right, well, I entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make the motion. I move that city manager be directed to work with the contractor to install a sidewalk section in the interior of the park instead of the elevated boardwalk sections along Calhoun Avenue.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second for discussion. First up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, I looked at the plans in the contract for what they're doing right now in this phase one, and it does say that they're putting the truncated dome mats in there, the yellow ones, not the brick pavers. I don't know if it's too late to change that, or in the phases to come, can we change their contract, or?
We can do whatever the council deems appropriate, but for the time being, under the current environment, what we're looking at installing are those ADA truncated panel, the cast-in-place versions that go in wet concrete. That's what we're looking at installing there. That's what's in the plans. That was what was on their bid sheet as well. But we can do whatever you all deem appropriate. If you would prefer the brick pavers, we can certainly go down that road as well.
I just know the council, we approved it over a year ago to use the brick pavers instead of those yellow mats that tear up and are highly expensive. Have we put in the brick pavers anywhere, to your knowledge?
Strangely enough, tomorrow, we are putting in brick pavers at Leonard Destin Park. There are those mats that you talked about. The contractor for the Leonard Destin Park project put those in. Those were specified, but we're going to take those out and we're going to put in those brick pavers instead.
Okay.
The ones that were installed, they weren't wide enough in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
We're fixing it.
Would we have to change the motion to address that, or is that something we can do on the separate action?
Just as a point of clarification, what I was talking about, the cast in place, are not the mats that glue down and bolt in. These are actually put down in wet concrete, and the concrete locks them in. We have had a very good run of success using that product.
Why didn't they use them on these sidewalks?
They are. It's in the plans, and it was specified on the bid sheet that that's what they would use.
Because what I've looked at, they've already poured the concrete and there's nothing in place.
They're going to be saw cutting that and putting those in. I've already talked to the contractor about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Destin, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposal that Mr. Schmidt is putting forward, does that save money or does it cost more? Is it cost neutral?
It would probably be a cost savings. The bid amount on the boardwalk section was $80,000, and I could not imagine under any circumstance that this short section of sidewalk would be that much.
Okay, so the difference is it's not going to be elevated, and it is going to wind through the park itself. Does it go around trees in a serpentine manner? Is it straight?
It will. It will kind of weave in and amongst. There's actually a nice corridor in between those live oaks, and it actually will be elevated slightly because the last thing we want to do is damage those trees by digging into the root zone.
Thanks.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Michael. The last meeting when I brought up some questions, I think part of me was saying this because it seemed that the goal of this section was just to move people from the sidewalk on one side through the park onto the sidewalk on the other side. And I just never heard the goal of it actually also being to help people get into the park. I'm not sure if that was said or I just didn't hear it. So obviously we need that sidewalk to continue because it helps people access the park. And I think that is a very important goal. I had questions about the trees and putting it in. So Michael just said that it's not going to mess those up. But I also am concerned. Concrete cracks, as Mr. Mike Buckingham said earlier, and I've experienced that too. But are we going to have? Are those trees going to be cracking the concrete pretty soon?
We will do everything in our power to make sure that they won't. This concrete that'll be put in is 4,000 PSI with fiber reinforcement.
Sure.
So it is tougher than average concrete.
And then my only other thought was that we're redeveloping, redesigning the park. I know it's on the budget for the capital projects, and I do understand that corner was not part of the design because it was already set aside for a possible fire station. But before we just throw a concrete sidewalk through some trails and over some trees that we don't want to mess up, Should we maybe just double check with the project, the capital project of the redesign of the park to make sure that we have a nice entrance on that sidewalk and that we're not rushing it or anything? But, I mean, if we have to do it, I guess we'll just do it as is right here. But I just want to make sure we're also not forgetting about the redesign of Calhoun Park. If we could tag team with that redesign to make it a cohesive walking path, I guess. But not sure if y'all have thoughts on that.
Do we have a rendering of the future park, the design, what they're going to redo?
Okay, we do have a rendering. We actually have two renderings. One was the pre-substation for the fire department, and then we have a rendering for the post that showed that hatched area. And in the post version, this sidewalk won't be in conflict with that design. In the earlier version, there was a parking lot, kind of where the bathrooms are right now.
Mr. Aber.
Thank you, Mayor. That was my question, was with the design of the park, and now that we're not having a substation in there, was the sidewalk going to be cohesive to what the current design is? And I saw Lisa nodding her head that this is going to work. So that was my concern, is that we're not just putting in a sidewalk and then worrying about the design of what we've preset for the park. Thank you.
All right. Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Vote is unanimous. So moved. Sir.
Thank you again. Next item up is staff is seeking direction on payment options for the customers of the Marler Street parking lot. At the March 15th meeting, staff did provide an update on the status of our paid parking program. Our paid parking program is currently accessible via digital means, app, phone calls, text, and webpage. During staff's presentation, although there was no motion, there was clear council's consensus for staff to bring back options at the next meeting for any potential hardwired or hardware-based payment options. And whatever staff brings back to council on this item, we want to ensure that information is accurate and any options are fully understood so council can make an informed decision. We have been experiencing some challenges, and I don't know if it's COVID world, I don't know, it's been a little frustrating to receive the information from our vendors in a timely manner. And staff wants to ensure that we're in line with council's consensus and requests. We are approaching the 100 days of summer so far, so any possible additional payment options compatible with our existing passport system, it does not appear that we could have it installed in the next couple of months. So staff respectfully requests further direction on this item. We can continue to pursue this and see what we can do to bring something back in the next few meetings, or we could take a comprehensive approach during the FY22 budget process, and if there was a good solution, we could have it targeted for the fall during the off-season in the 22 budget. Again, staff is just looking for direction on this and is happy to provide any additional information. Matt is online also to help answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Destin.
This question was kind of basically two parts in my mind. One is, how do we get people to use it? And second, how do we get them to be able to pay in an easier manner? The first one we can still address. I know you all have put it in some of the wayfinding things. What do we have going in way of a larger sign or a banner or anything that notifies the people as they drive by that that's a public parking space? Is my first question. And we hopefully can get something along those lines done before Memorial Day. The second one, while I strongly believe we need to make it simpler to pay, you may be right. I don't know how we can get it done before Memorial Day, so I don't have a terrible problem with having that go into the budget cycle on the next round and quiz Pensacola a little harder on how they've installed those credit card swipe machines in their parking lots. But we do need to get on a way to put the public on notice that that's a public parking space, because they still don't know. They still wander back and forth looking for it. So if you guys would bring us something along those lines that we can do before Memorial Day, and I won't make that in the form of a motion, but please try to get something back to us so we can at least take that step.
We're happy to do so. I know we are working on some signage, and we will pay some extra careful attention to that so that we can get what we can in there and the best solution before Memorial Day.
Yep.
Thank you.
Google's helping us as, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, guys like me and you. But as you can see by the 700% increase in usage of the park, so apparently the pay system's working, Google's working. The only thing about those kiosks in Pensacola, because I was over there 2 weekends ago, the majority of their pay solution is still the apps, all through Pensacola. The places where they got those kiosks are usually smaller parking lots, not the bigger ones, and they're still operated on cell phones. So I think one of our issues we were talking about was people having a hard time during the course of the summer because we don't have enough bandwidth for our cell providers. Fortunately, I think 5G is coming, so that may solve that. But the kiosks really aren't going to solve that particular problem of not enough bandwidth. So it's kind of like I've experienced in a big city where you go to buy gas at your credit card and they're operating off the cell thing and the dang thing won't load. Same reason. So I guess when you're looking at those options, when you bring it back to us to discuss in our next budget deal, we need to take get us all the information you can on that.
We have been working hard on trying to figure out how to make the cell phone part work, and I think we're going to know a little more with a little more time. There's a lot of things happening out there, so if we were given a little more time, I think it's just going to be better all the way around so we can provide all information.
Well, if we don't want to wait on the cell providers to go to 5G, we could always look in the city of Destin owning its own Wi-Fi system and actually make some money for ourselves doing that.
That was something I would bring up at a later date. But the cell phone issue is going to affect the apps we use now or the kiosk in equal manner. So
exactly,
we need to fix that, and then we can do both.
One of the things that we talked about when we discussed the wayfinding signs this lot was something in the median, in the middle right there. I think y'all were going to possibly talk with Department of Transportation about that, putting a sign right there in the middle of the median. Was that ever looked into?
I don't recall it being in the median itself. What I recall is directional signage in the right-of-way on the edges. And I would have to rely upon either Michael or Don to help me out on this part because
I'm sorry, concerning the public parking signs, we have contacted DOT and we've had a conversation back and forth about allowing them on DOT right-of-way. We've been given kind of a partial clearance, but they really haven't approved the layout. The signage, I think, is okay, but it's the layout. Sometimes it's tough to get an answer out of DOT, unfortunately.
Yeah, that'd be my observation. By the time you get permission, some will be over with. So we better concentrate on the other ones that we don't necessarily need their permission for.
You can always ask for forgiveness. All right. Go ahead. If everybody's good with that, we can press on to the next item. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Let me find my agenda here. So we have a few announcements here. We do have a Crosstown Connector workshop on May 10th at 5:30. That will be live streamed on YouTube, so for the viewing public. In addition, do want to provide an update from DWU that beginning Tuesday, which is tomorrow, April 20th, DWU will continue their installation of a reclaimed water main across Airport Road. That will impact surrounding roadways in the area. Motorists are encouraged to avoid Airport Road during this construction. Motorists can inspect the road closure of Airport Road at Industrial Park Lane during the construction and installation of the pipe. Traffic will need to detour around that construction area, and DWU recommends that the only traffic use Airport Road between Airport Road and Commons Drive, between Commons Drive and Main Street on Airport Road, that only local traffic uses that. So if anybody has any questions, they can contact DWU at 837-6146. We did have a question about how pedestrians, because that is a heavily traveled area, and DWU has assured us that they will be helping to ensure those pedestrians have a detour or can safely cross. And Also, one last thing, would like to provide a quick update on some of our hiring, specifically in our community development department. We do have 2 accepted positions for planners, and then we also have a building inspector that has accepted, is that correct? A position. So good news is HR and community development have really been working hard on this, and I've got to give it to all of them for some innovative solutions so that we can recruit better. And stay tuned for those other positions. We're working on them hard, so we'll report on that as we get more information.
Thank you, Webb. Appreciate it. We're going to
Thank
take a 5-minute break before we get into the public hearings.
Kyle, you gonna read fast?
All righty then. We'll go ahead and get this started again. Mr. Bowman, this is your show. Take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. First, we have item 5A. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. We have Jerry Campbell of Central Design Group LLC on behalf of Destin Hotel Partners LLC, requesting
Hey, Joey.
approval.
Hey, guys, could y'all go outside?
Joey.
Sorry there, Kyle.
Thanks, Mayor. Jerry Campbell of Central Design Group LLC on behalf of Destin Hotel Partners LLC requesting approval of a major deviation to a major development order identified as Holiday Inn Express Edition. The project consists of 18,250 square foot addition to the existing hotel. The addition will consist of 22 new guest rooms, a lobby, the related site work. The proposed project is located at 108 Hutchinson Street. The site consists of approximately 3 acres. No changes to the other approved uses or site improvements is proposed. If at this time I could get any member of staff, any member of the public, and the applicant, and anybody who's presenting on behalf of the applicant to please stand and raise their right hand. Please stand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth? All right, thank you, guys. Next, we'll go down the line like we usually do, starting at Kevin, and please disclose if you have had any ex parte communications on this matter.
I have not.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No communications whatsoever.
No, I haven't had any.
Nope.
No communication.
No, sir.
All right, thanks, Council and Mayor. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Kopp.
Waiting on her. Miss.
Sorry, I was having technical issues, but you do not have to turn it over to me. It is going to be staff that summarizes the item.
Thanks, Kim. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As stated by Mr. Baumann, this would be an addition to the existing hotel, approximately 18,000 square feet, which would consist of 22 new rooms, a lobby, and the related site work. This property does have a future land use map designation of ROI, which is residential, office, and institutional, and a current zoning designation in the LDC of residential, office, and institutional tourist development, ROITD. So it is consistent with our LDC and our comp plan future land use intent. The project does comply with all applicable codes and comp plan policies such as pitched roof, floor area ratio, setbacks, open space, parking requirements, and landscaping requirements. And with that being said, staff does recommend that City Council approve the major deviation to the major development order identified as Crystal Beach Plaza 9th Amendment Holiday Inn Express Edition. And I will be happy to, and we do have some representation from the applicant here tonight, so if anybody has any questions, I or he would be glad to answer them.
And if nothing further from staff, we can please go ahead and have the applicant's presentation if you have one, or if council has any questions for the applicant.
Do you have a presentation, sir? Nope. Okay. Well, here's what we'll do. This is a public hearing. I will go ahead and open the public hearing portion of it, and then after that, I'll entertain the motion. And once we have the motion, then if the council has any questions for their representative, we'll do it at that time. So that being said, I will open this up for public comment at this moment. Look out here in the audience. Is there anybody that wants to step up to the podium and make public comment on this particular project? Seeing none, do you have anyone? No, nobody on the webinar. So, Ray? Nope. All right, seeing no comment on this particular project, I'll close the public hearing portion, and I will entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make that motion. I move to approve the major deviation to a major development order identified as Crystal Beach Plaza 9th Amendment Holiday Inn Express Edition.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Any discussion or questions for the representative of this major DO? Go ahead, sir.
Just a minor question. The parking requirement for hotels, or how much is it per square foot? I know what it is for restaurants. What is it for hotels or motels?
I believe it's one space per 100, but let me check real quick.
Yeah, that's the same as restaurants. I didn't know if it was or not. But that being said, they do provide the parking for these new 18,000 square feet or whatever, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Any council members? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Congratulations, sir. All right, up next, Kyle, take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. Next, we have item 5B. This is the second reading of ordinance number 21-02-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designations of the parcels described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A from low-density residential village, LDRV, to residential office and institutional village residential, ROIVR, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
And seeing how it's a public hearing at this time, I'll look out and open the public comment portion of this hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to make a comment on this proposed second reading of ordinance 21-02-LC? Seeing none, is there anybody queued up? Ray?
No, sir.
I will close the public comment portion of this public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Move the city approve proposed ordinance 2102 LC.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion amongst the council? Seeing none?
Oh, wait a minute, Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
You're too fast.
I was too fast.
Just want to verify that this is more like a housekeeping where we're going through and making the zoning comply with the comp plan, correct?
That is correct.
We got a couple corrections there. All right. Anyone else? I was too quick on the trigger. Seeing none, now I'll hit the button. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
Next, we have item 5C. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2106 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendments to Article 7 of the Land Development Code, land use type, density, intensity, zoning, and regulatory controls, amending Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses to include police protection and fire protection as a conditional use in all city zoning districts, providing for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
And at this time, I'll open up the public comment part of this hearing, the second reading of ordinance 21-06-LC. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to come to the podium to make a comment on this particular second reading of this ordinance? Seeing none, James?
No, sir.
Nope. How about you, Ray?
No, sir.
Emails or text messages? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of this hearing and entertain a motion at this time. I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Is there any discussion or comments by any council member? Seeing none. See, I went slow that time. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
Lastly, we have item 5D. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2107 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to preserving the historic Zerby Calhoun area within the City of Destin, amending Article 7 of the Land Development Code, land use type, density, intensity, zoning, and regulatory controls, to create a Zerby Calhoun historic district overlay, providing for purpose and intent, providing for boundaries of the Zerby Calhoun historic overlay, establishing a process for designation of structures and sites significant to the history of the Zerby Calhoun Historic Overlay Area, establishing criteria for designation of structures and sites significant to the history of the Zerby Calhoun area, establishing a certificate of appropriateness, authorizing code waivers, providing for appeals, providing for penalties, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. You can take a drink of water now. Is there anyone in the audience? I'm going to open up the public comment portion of this hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to make comment on this historical district overlay? Nope. Ray, anyone?
No, sir.
All right, I'll close the public comment portion of this and entertain a motion at this
I'll
time.
make the motion. I move to approve proposed ordinance 21-07-LC.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any comments? Seeing none. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Up next, item number 6, consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second.
I'd like to pull for discussion, item B, just learn a little more about it.
This would be Destin Forward class, since we've not had any travel this year. The travel funds are available for the is it $700 course, Mr. Moody? So it was easy in the budget, according to Crystal, for training and education for council. Nobody's asked for anything, so the money's there. As you heard, we had $8,000 we gave for a training video.
I know in the past, there have been council members that asked for different classes and training, and one of the requirements was that it actually serves as a representing the city or something that's benefiting the city. And I'm just wondering that connection. I know people have taken Destin Forward to learn more and then run for council. I guess I'm not seeing that connection.
Mr. Moody, could I ask you to step up and give more clarification why this benefits the city as a council member
I think
attending?
it's leadership training, best I can tell.
Yeah, Shane Moody, President and CEO of the Destin Chamber. It's interesting that this comes up tonight. I got 5 current members of this year's class cutting it very closely to graduation, getting their city council attendance in.
I'll sign off on that
Yeah,
at
okay,
the end of the meeting.
Yeah, y'all see the mayor, he's got to sign your agenda. Skip, Councilman Overdeer is a graduate of the class. James is a graduate of the class. Michael Burgess is a graduate of the class. I just talked to Webb because we always give a staff person at the city a spot in the class for free. We don't charge them for it. So I just talked to Webb about who he wanted. Catherine Card is a graduate. But it's a community education. Calling it leadership is kind of an overstatement, I think, because it's more of a community education, hands-on. This is what makes Destin roll, the connections that she'll make beyond what she already makes as a council member. And then I'll go into really the big part of it is they have to do a project that benefits the city. As a matter of fact, on Arbor Day, the class has purchased the oak tree that's going to be planted outside. They're coming over to help do that on Arbor Day. If you go to the History and Fishing Museum, there are 4 projects, Skip, at the History and Fishing Museum that the class has done. The memorial sign for Mr. Destin's great-great-grandfather Leonard on the harbor behind his restaurant was done by the class. They're helping Lisa with some stuff. I think I'm cutting Lisa a $5,000 check for sod and decorations out here. So the benefit, not to mention the partnership that it continues to build with the chamber and the city.
Sure. No,
Thanks, sir.
thank you. I mean,
Okay.
I'm familiar with the program. It was just, usually people take it and then run for council, and you're informed when you run for council, and of course, we learn so much when we're sitting up here.
Maybe
So
we should make all
just the
council
order
members
is
have to
different.
go through the class after they become council
That's
members.
a really good idea, Mayor.
That's what
a
I'm
really
thinking.
good idea.
Well, I surely support Ms. Abear's taking it, but I think they should make her a guest lecturer and waive the fee myself.
If she weren't elected, I could do that. But being elected, I can't waive her fee.
I gotcha.
I lecture all the time. They don't pay me crap. And you do it too, right? No, I guess seeing how we pulled that, let's vote on the draft minutes of the advisory committees and board that was in the consent agenda, and then I guess we'll vote on this separate. How's that sound to everybody?
Yeah, that sounds good. Really, you don't even need to approve the draft minutes because the boards themselves will approve those later on, and there's no action, there's no item report for you on that. So really, you could just approve item 6B if Dewey would like to clarify. That's his motion.
You got it. Thank you, sir. And that's okay with the second? Yes? Okay. All right, we're voting on 6B. Yes. Ayes have it, so moved. All right. Councilmember Braden, you got the floor, sir.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Dr. Ramswell, you're up next.
Thank you, and I actually have, I'm sorry, hopefully it won't last too long, because I do have quite a few things here, as the mic decides to do its own thing. I guess I'll go ahead and start with the utility box art project, and I see they've already got that pulled up. So a couple different visioning sessions, I have mentioned and brought up the fact that New Orleans has instituted this program where they essentially turn typical eyesores into a thing of beauty that the community can enjoy and the community participates in, and it's just another way to sort of be a part of the community and do something special to spice it up, if you will. So this is an example, obviously, of one of those utility boxes before and then what they look like after. Next slide, please. So this is just a little background on the project. As I mentioned, it is based out of New Orleans, the Community Visions Unlimited company. It's not even a company, it's actually an organization. And they really wanted to try to revitalize some areas of town and do it through the arts and different partnerships with different groups and different community organizations. Their original goals were really creating beauty and economic development, and along the way they actually discovered that there was a lot more gained from the experience, which I'll kind of go into a little bit on another slide. But one thing that was sort of a nice side effect was a lot of their utility boxes had been tagged by different gangs, and they discovered that when they painted them and beautified them, suddenly they weren't tagged anymore. They were left alone, which was sort of an interesting byproduct. I think this says that over 10 years now they've been doing this and only 3 boxes were re-tagged. So not that we have a tremendous issue with that, but that is sort of an interesting side note. But they have been so successful, they have now expanded it out of the New Orleans area into Covington and even into Metairie. So it has become a real success. So these are a few of the potential benefits I see for us doing this here in Destin. Obviously, beautification of something that is not necessarily pleasing to look at, and many people try to hide with plants or whatever. We also are really pulling everybody together. We talk about how we have our CRAs, and the whole idea is revitalizing certain areas of town. And I see this as a way to sort of build in to that project that's already been started and ongoing for quite some time. This is a way to really have the community get involved in something for the good of the entire community. We can have all sorts of different sponsorships. We can have partnerships, multiple different opportunities here. Of course, I've got on here also, this does lead to different community and economic development. Next slide. These are just some of the potential partnerships I thought of off the top of my head. Different groups that might want to pick a box to decorate with their logo. Thinking of first responders, a fireman might want to decorate a box with firefighters on it. A church might want to decorate with their church on it. Fishing museum. The possibilities really are endless. So this is before. Obviously, there's a box undone on the left, and you see the guy on the right prepping one of them. And this is also some of them as they proceed through sort of the preparation and finishing touches of them. And then the next several slides are going to be finished products, and you can see the variety, the tremendous variety, and I mean, it builds a lot on the character of their city. You've got, obviously that's a ship and not a boat, but the idea is there, different possibilities for different partnerships or involving different community organizations and businesses. just some other ones. I mean, even you saw the other one, it looks like donuts, and there's another one that looks like fishing vendors and such. So, you know, it's even a great idea, maybe restaurants, if they've got one outside or if they wanted to sponsor one in a neighborhood or along a street somewhere. And this is another thing, I don't know that we could do this as a city, but for partners that wanted to work with us, what they do is the boxes that people paint, they then make mini boxes and they auction them off for charity or, you know, for supplies, things of that nature. And so you've got someone in the community, let's say the firefighters do, you know, a firefighter one, they make a mini box, you auction it off, and they get to keep the mini box as a good little souvenir, and the funds go to whatever it is designated to go to. So these are just some special notes. I have been talking with Lewis, and Lewis and I have both reached out to Gulf Power, and Bernard is going to be meeting with us and is very excited and intrigued about the project. The paint that they use, it's a special paint. It's not terribly expensive. It's just a little bit more than typical paint, and it has lasted so far 10 years in New Orleans. So similar conditions, similar heat. It's not something that you're going to have to redo constantly. There's no damage whatsoever to the boxes themselves. You're merely painting the outside. They can still access them. They can do whatever they need to. No damage at all. Obviously, we would need the buy-in from different local utility providers. Destin water users, I know they have some different, maybe much larger. I was also thinking even waste management, when they have some of those giant dumpsters. We've got one that we've had over here. Wouldn't it be cool if we could decorate that and it doesn't look like this giant green garbage dumpster? I mean, but anyway, those are just a few of the different ideas. They have even branched out into doing old telephone poles and telephone boxes and railroad crossings. So really the whole idea is, I mean, you get the whole community involved, you're beautifying something that has to be there, but isn't necessarily the prettiest thing on the planet. So that's generally the idea. And then I think this is how it would work. You know, we don't need to go through all this. You can certainly read, but just sort of a basic overview of sort of what we would need to do in terms of determining who's going to manage it or oversee it, you know, locating the boxes, getting permission from the box owners, establishing parameters, and that sort of a thing. So again, I didn't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on this because I know there's a lot of things on tonight's agenda, but I did want to bring this forward as a project that I would like to spearhead and move forward with. And I'd love to get more people involved, the whole council if y'all wish, whatever. But I think this is a good opportunity to really get all sorts of segments of our entire community together to work together and do something to beautify the community. So in a nutshell, that's it. Does anybody have any questions about it? Or thoughts, or horribly opposed?
I think it looks very nice, and it's a very unique and creative idea to taking big, ugly things and making them look nice, and partnerships with local organizations and churches and businesses and schools and everything. I mean, they take ownership of things that they didn't design. Kids love designing things artistic-wise, and I think it only just makes the beautification of our city even better.
I agree. I think it's a nice idea. I think it's something that I'm sure a lot of the businesses will buy into, as far as, you know, being able to decorate their own utility boxes, you know, probably be happy to have the opportunity to make something ugly look nice. So it's a great idea.
Do you think it would sell in your neighborhood?
You know, it might, I don't know. I think it's
Be more
it's
commercial,
the sell.
maybe?
Well, and it wouldn't
Along the
have to look
streets?
commercial. I mean, you
No,
could
I'm just
paint
talking about
trees.
the commercial areas. You know,
Oh.
I think it might be
I don't
more
know.
appropriate.
We could see it spread into the neighborhoods, checking with the homeowners associations.
Right.
I know some are very strict, others maybe not as much. But, Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just see where it goes, and it could even expand. I sort of jokingly put at the end, dress up Destin, but I could see it evolving into even like landscaping projects where the whole community is involved, and different ways of really beautifying different elements of Destin itself jointly.
Well, the banner project's been a big success, so this one's got
The
potential.
which one?
The banner, the banners on Main
Absolutely.
Street, it's been very positive, so this might be something for us to look into.
Councilor Ramswell, it's Michael over here. The boxes that you showed initially are all traffic control boxes, and we have 4 of those, but I can get you in contact with our DOT permitting rep if you were interested in having them up and down the corridor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be terrific. And like I said, Lewis is already bought into this, so he and I are kind of spearheading it right now. And of course, anyone else that wants to join in and participate, the more the merrier as we go forward and work out the details and all of those elements.
Perhaps you could follow the Adopt a Street program and only adopt, and that's been quite successful, so that may be a roadmap for you.
Absolutely, and I think I had that on one of the slides as one of the ways to potentially manage it was very similar to how we manage Adopt a Street. You know, we know there's one here and there's one here. You know, the Garden Club's going to take this one, the Destin Chamber's taking that one, and their response. So there's different ways of doing it, but absolutely, I agree. That's one way of managing it that might be very effective.
The neighborhoods that have those boxes that may have like, you know, we don't want anything, well, then maybe they could just paint lilies, make them flowers on the box. So
Exactly.
they're not some sort of, you know, fishing boat or a turtle or something. They can have them painted, you know, like lilies or something that's like a flowery look to them so that they're not like, oh, if we buy into this, we're going to have someone come put something gaudy on it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, they can certainly, anybody can establish parameters. If you're doing them in the neighborhood, maybe you say, I don't want bright red and orange and purple. We want pretty pastels that look gardeny or something. I mean, whatever. I mean, there's certainly room for those sort of parameters based on whomever we're working with and what they'd like to see. And, you know, what occurred to me is I remember they used to every breast cancer month, and I hate to say, is it March, October? I can't, the firefighters used to go around and paint all the fire hydrants pink. I don't think I've seen them do that in a while, but that's something even maybe we could talk to them about. Even, I don't know if they have to be a certain color for visibility or not, but again, looking at the future, maybe expanding into different ways of beautifying Destin. Any other questions or comments or anything? Good. Well, I'm glad y'all like it. I thought this would be a really good project to kind of get everybody together and doing something unique and cool for the entire city. All right, the next thing I have up is an update for the Gulf Shore Drive extension. Mr. Kyle?
Yeah, sure, Preble. So this item is of ongoing concern to the city because of our Noriega Point Park. Of course, we're building this big, beautiful park, and we want to provide access to it. As we've discussed at previous meetings, there is a development application on the properties adjacent to this right-of-way, and there's an ongoing issue related to 2 things, really. The location of the right-of-way primarily, we've seen several different iterations of that, and the payment for construction of the right-of-way. And I think what you will see in a timely fashion with regard to our park is that this will come to the council for a resolution as a quasi-judicial matter prior to the opening of the park. And I believe all of that will work out timely. But again, because of the ongoing quasi-judicial future proceeding, I don't want to get too much into this if we can avoid it tonight.
I guess my question is, you said prior to the opening of the park. How can we open the park if we don't have the road going into it?
Well, we have people now just simply they walk, they park at the end of where it's currently constructed and walk. So that would be how it would be used in the interim until the right-of-way is fully constructed, I would imagine. And they're also, recall too that there will be a 25-foot approximately construction road leading into the park when construction on the final phase of the park begins as well. So there will be additional paved access in that manner.
So will people be allowed to park on that?
There is a design which FDP has designed through their processes that, assuming city council finds it acceptable, would eventually be put into place, and it has parking spaces and stuff where the right-of-way would essentially become, in addition to a right-of-way, a parking lot for those items.
Right, no, I know there's one in the plans, but I'm just saying, until we actually get the road and the parking there, will they be allowed to utilize the temporary?
I wouldn't imagine, again, I'm not an engineer, so I can't speak definitively on that particular subject, but I would not imagine that parking on a 25-foot construction road would be something that would be permitted. I would imagine that the parking would occur where it currently is, which is at the end of 2 Gulf Shore Drive, not 1 Gulf Shore Drive. In the interim, however, again, I anticipate that the timing is such that we might not even have this issue arise, that the road could be fully constructed, or at least in the process of being constructed by the time the park is opened, based on how I see the timing playing out on all this.
Can you keep us apprised, or is Pierce going to be coming back and giving us another update so that we can follow this progress and, we're not suddenly getting ready to open the park and still have an access road and no plans?
Yeah, certainly. Lance has been primarily working with Pierce, but we can reach out to him and we'll apprise Lance, and we will certainly keep council apprised on the ongoing access issue. But I do anticipate that it will come before council before any sort of really serious access issue where we're not able to provide access to the park arises.
Okay, thank you. The next item I have up, I'm actually going to save the next one for last because I thought of 2 others that have come in through email where people have requested some sort of input. One of them was a complaint about a 5G cell tower that was put in on Indian Trail. Do y'all know anything about that? And was city right-of-way requested, or is that on private property?
Most of it's Noel here, sorry. Most of the 5G poles that have been placed in and around town, I'm sure you've seen them. They've had to obtain both a right-of-way permit and a City of Destin building permit because they're connected, they have electrical systems to them too. So they've been permitted both through us and through engineering for right-of-way.
I'm trying to remember, it seems like we had a lengthy discussion about these a year or so ago. Not sure if anyone remembers. And I had thought the council had requested to be notified when those were going in, but I could be wrong. Do y'all
I remember
recall?
that about, they were putting them out on 98. You were like, if they're going to put them in the center, when are we going to know they're going to put them up? So I wasn't on council, I was out there, but I do remember you.
Didn't
Yeah.
the state change that?
Is that what
I think
happened?
state law changed it and let them put it in the right of ways.
Okay, because I know there's a lot of concern. I guess people are hearing ringing or something. I'm not sure, but do you have some sort of map of where they're being placed and when they're being placed that we could look at and just see how many they are? I mean,
Let me
I mean, I know they're necessary, but here we are tonight talking about millions of dollars to underground, power lines and beautifying the city, and then we've got companies going in and erecting these towers everywhere. So I had thought we were really going to try to keep a good, not necessarily a limit, but at least try to monitor where they were being put.
Let me get with engineering on the right-of-way permits they have and us with building, and we'll compile that list and bring it back to you so that we can give you an idea of where so far what has been permitted.
That would be great, and if y'all could bring it to the next council meeting,
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Ranswell, I think the Florida legislation 2 years ago passed a law that prevents cities like ours from preventing and/or requiring placement of 5G towers. So they basically have taken that capability out of our hands through Florida statute.
Even like the density and how many
Yep.
they have in a spot?
Am I
Yeah,
not
see,
correct?
I'm not familiar, and I just know there's concerns.
I think Councilmember Braden and Mayor Jarvis are correct. There was some legislation related to this, and I do know in the context of undergrounding, for instance, one of the ongoing concerns is that in talking with city attorneys of other coastal communities, that sometimes the 5G is attached to existing poles, and then it is difficult to get you can get all the other utilities down, but it's difficult to get the AT&T or Verizon or whoever the cellular provider is to take down their 5G network. So I do know there are some issues like that going on across the state. I believe that legislation did come through a year or two ago, but I just don't know the specifics off the top of my head.
Yeah, now I remember vaguely that we
Remember,
had talked about
Yeah, League of
disguising them
Cities was
somehow.
that was a big issue with the Florida League of
Mhm.
Cities to fight that legislation, and we actually lost that bait. That was all under some of the home rule.
Yeah, but do you remember, I think you were here,
Yes.
and I think we talked about ways we could at least obscure them or make them green or sort of try to blend them in or camouflage them somehow, and I just can't remember.
Yeah, what I'm worried
where
about is exactly what Kyle was talking about. We're gonna go to spend millions and millions of dollars to underground our utilities, and we're still gonna have to deal with these poles. So I'm sure that's gonna be something that that we'll have to deal through the Florida state legislative process to address that, because they won that round, of lawmaking.
They won the battle but not the war?
That's right.
Okay, thanks y'all for your input. I've also had some concerns sent to me regarding the west side entrance to the Emerald Grand when you come down the bridge, how it has been blocked off and causing some backups up and over the Destin Bridge. And I had sent some of those in, and I'm not sure what the status is now.
Council, we did check into this. The Emerald Ground replaced some AC units, and it required a crane, and so that street was blocked for the placement of those units, and then opened, and as far as I know, hasn't been closed since, and no plans to close it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I have, let's see, I think it was Friday I last saw it, so I don't know if anything changed over the weekend, but
Can I add a comment or question? Is that permit that they got for a crane just an open permit that 2 weeks from now, if they want to close it down because the crane's still over there, they can close it down because their crane is parked over there? Or is it closed and they can no longer use the crane as their reason for closing it down?
So the permit for the crane, of course, you have to get a permit from FAA. But you said, Councilman Ramsdale, that it was last Friday you saw it closed?
I believe it was last Friday. Has anyone else been by there and noticed?
Okay, so we need to go back and do some more homework then. And so we'll go back and look and.
The barriers are still there, so if they're done with the crane, common sense would tell me they don't need the barriers to stay there anymore, but just 2 cents from me.
We were assured that that was a one-time event and wouldn't happen again, so we will let us investigate and we will return with some more information before or at the next meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah?
I'm sorry, I have a quick question about that same area. Those oak trees that are planted there, I know they've never been trimmed, to my knowledge, and when you come off the Destin Bridge, it's blocking that red light until you actually get around the curve, and several people's complained about that. I didn't know, I guess those trees are on private property, but I don't know if they're still obstructing that red light to a degree, if they can be trimmed or not.
Y'all got that?
Yeah, we'll take a look at it and report back. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then the last item I have tonight, but definitely not the least important, it's extremely important. I have on here a memorial plaque for Colton Ward. I know ever since he was killed, that the community has been very, very supportive of anything to try to come together and remember him, and just a real showing of love and respect for him and the family. And something that even the children have batted around, I know a lot of them that were all friends with that group, they have talked about creating a Colton Corner with a K and a K. And I also received another request that a lot of folks would love to see some sort of plaque. And so my request this evening is if we could get some sort of plaque erected at that intersection, at that corner, that says Colton's Corner, in memorial, something of that nature. Colton's father was going to be here this evening, but was not able to make it at the last minute. But the family is on board completely and can assist in wording that would be meaningful to them and not too upsetting. That's perhaps the wrong word, but I think y'all understand what I'm saying. So that would be my request tonight, is putting together Colton's Corner memorial plaque for that intersection.
Would that be in lieu of all the other stuff that's out there?
I think that's the goal, to try to remove some of the things that people have been placing there in memory, and instead have this sort of perpetual marker.
Isn't there a utility box or something on the corner right there too? I'm just saying that could almost be utilized as the first
You're
project
brilliant.
for your.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. Yeah. We'll have to find out which utility company it is. Does anyone know offhand which? But we'll figure that out and get in touch with them, because you're right, that would be a terrific thing to do. Great job, Kevin. So aside from that, and I guess that's a motion, since the plaque itself and the mounting would actually cost funds, and they have fundraised, but I can't imagine that it would be any great expense to put a plaque and just some sort of mount. And I'd like to request that we use council funds and do that.
You got a motion?
That's a motion.
Got a second? Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none. Ayes have it, so moved.
Excellent. And then I'm done, but I do have 2 items for the next agenda I just wanted to mention. One of them is determining the harbor CRA boundary line. And then the second item would be having the capacity study also identify the number of slips that we have. And that's it. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Mr. Destin.
Mayor, I had an issue, but it has not quite matured yet, and I will bring it to the next meeting, so that's all for me.
All right, you got it. Councilman Overdeer.
Nothing tonight, thank you, Mayor.
I see a couple items here. Ms. Aber.
Thank you, Mayor. First, the nomination appointment of Ms. Daniela Piper to the Board of Adjustment.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Got a motion, got a second. If you volunteer around here, you're going to get elected.
And she's in the audience if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, you're already done here. Take a vote before she runs out the door. Ayes have it, so moved. Congratulations, ma'am. Thank you for volunteering.
The second thing I have, there was some new beautification of the pier boardwalk down at the harbor. They'd started over by AJ's. It looks fantastic. They started working up the ramp at Galati's. The funding ran out. The sourcing was, basically everything's been corrected, and they were ready to get started. And I had asked staff as well as Parks and Rec to please put this off. Even though it's great that we have the money, there's no way we can do this full rest of this boardwalk in 6 weeks. And we already can see that we're at the 100 days of summer. The spring break is just blowing out the seams. So I want to make a recommendation that the boardwalk in front of the tail fins be delayed until November or August at the end of the season. But any immediate boards that are damaged be replaced immediately, but no full replacement be made until end of season. Yes, it is.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Any discussion on this?
I have a question.
Okay, we
Go
got a
ahead,
couple.
Mr. Destin.
Just a question of the
Go ahead,
staff.
Mr. Destin, then I'll get you, Dr. Ramswell.
We're going to still maintain the safety and integrity, and you can do that?
Yes, that has been one of staff's concerns. If we open it up, we do want to take a look at underneath and ensure that the substructure is good.
Okay.
And I did make a recommendation that they find some sort of, maybe even a diver of some sort to do an underlook of the under part of the pier. But beside tail fins, there's a piece that goes between the building up to the parking lot. There's a piece that's completely rotted out to where the owner of tail fins has put an orange cone over it to prevent someone from falling into it. So staff and I have talked about this. They're working on these immediate fixes, and they're going to double check the undercarriage of the pier itself.
I think the goal by staff is to keep this expedited as much as possible while preserving the safety of our public.
Did you have another?
That's
what
where I
you
was
asking?
going.
Okay.
I have a question, Mayor. What time frame were we looking at? How long is it going to take to, if we went ahead and fixed it, to fix it?
Lisa, if you can assist us, I know you've been working on that project and you have a better idea on some of these timeframes.
Yeah. So we are working on it right now. We're finishing up Pilates. We will be jumping over to AJ's, and we will, right now, I mean, they're on the boardwalk, and it is not, they take a section at a time. So, we just move the people to get to the destination that they're going to. We would not be closing anybody down, and, right now, to get to AJ's and then tail fins would be the next one because Pilates is about finished. We're looking at, we would love to say Memorial Day, that we'd be done. Rain kind of messed up last week, so, they're 2 days behind. That's going to happen, but if we started and then we saw that Memorial Day is, in a week, all they do is button it up like they did Pilates and just let it continue on, flow, and then get back on it and move the pedestrians where they, so they can get to all the establishments. We would not shut anybody down.
Well, I know probably last month or two, we've had a tremendous amount of people in town, and apparently it hasn't been a problem for anybody else, so why is it all of a sudden a problem for tail fins?
I was down there. The only reason why I brought this up was because the way their seating is on the outer pier, and then there's the walk-through, and then there's the back of their business. Those piers boards have to be completely removed, correct? So you would need to have him get all of that off, whereas from AJ's to Pilates, it's all wide open. You're not moving any furniture. You're not replacing anything but boards, correct?
That is correct.
If I may, Mayor, I had one other question. So you're recommending that you can go forward and work on it and do it in such a manner that it does not impede? And I'm not sure what the motion we just made then would impact on that.
Right, when you get to tail fins, like right now, we're at AJ, we're gonna be starting AJ's, and of course, they have to remove their bleachers because that is on our boardwalk. Yes, tail fins would have to remove what's on their boardwalk.
Now, of course, as I recall, those easements, when we wrote them, and I was on the council, that wasn't allowed, was it?
We are in the process right now to find out what is going to be allowed back on those beautiful boards.
Yes, okay. So I'm confused about the result of the motion we're contemplating making. is it going to interfere with what you're doing? It sounds like we're telling you to stop, other than minor safety repairs.
It sounds like we would not do tail fins, and we would continue on. The money is for this budget year. So we wait till, so we would jump to the next property. That's what I would assume. We wouldn't stop the process because we have things rolling and we have the money in this year's budget that has to be spent by September 30th. You know, we're not, so
Okay,
you're going to have,
Yeah, let me
Excuse
just
but
clarify.
it doesn't sound like we're accomplishing anything other than detouring around tail fins. Okay.
I agree.
And just to be clear, we're talking about TDC funds that
And we
is
don't
going
want those
to.
to be lost.
This is
for
not city money, it's
lack of
grant.
use. Okay, well, then I think I know how I'll vote on the motion.
Lisa, how many days' work are you talking about behind tail fins?
Behind tail fins, they're looking at probably 3 weeks. So we might not finish it by Memorial Day.
If they have to move their things off, then they won't have them to create revenue for 3 weeks. And is that what's going on?
I would say yes. The conversation with the owner was he would move it from one side to the other. If that can happen,
Okay, well, I definitely know.
If we made this till the end of August, you'd still have the 3 weeks of September before the funding was physical completion, correct? So if we didn't do it, stop like Memorial Day weekend, we got through the heat of the summer, when the kids go back to school and things thin out about August, could we wait till then? No? Yes?
All righty then, are we done? Go ahead, Dr.
So
Renfro.
if we can clarify what we're doing.
Want to reread the motion, Ray? Let's just vote on the motion after we hear it.
Motion is for the boardwalk in front of tail fins be delayed until November, and any immediate boards that are damaged be replaced, but not a full replacement until the end of the season.
All right, we had a motion and a second to that effect. We've had discussion. Let's go ahead and take this to a vote.
I mean, I could adjust the date to August if that helps suspend the funding.
Or you may make another motion because we're voting. Sorry. Go ahead, vote.
Can we do a motion to continue?
Noes have it. Motion failed.
So my question was going to be, if we detour around tail fins and only replace emergency boards, but they have more pressing, possibly safety concerns underneath, wouldn't that, I mean, as an owner, I would rather risk maybe losing some income in that area rather than a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. But I'm just trying to think, meaning if somebody were to get injured there. So you brought it up, Ms. Abear, so what?
Well, I physically went down there to look at it because I heard how nice the boardwalk was over by AJ's, and it's a very large area, and then there's the pier that goes up beside Galati's for the ramp for, you know, people that need the ADA accessibility, and then it stops right about there, and they still have probably from where this plexiglass to about here, Johnny and I, that much to do before they get to right where the tail fins area is. But tail fins has their, and I got a copy of the development order. On the development order, they have this bar area is authorized and these tables are authorized. And this was dated in 2018, everything that they've got. All I was looking at was, okay, so if they've got to move all of this and they get in there and they start and it turns into a 6-week job, then you've got people that will find a way to scurry around the tape or the cones and step on boats to get around this. And before you know it, we got a lawsuit because somebody falls in the water because, you know, after hours, they're trying to sneak around. They don't want to go all the way up and around and come back down. You see what I'm saying? So I'm trying to prevent the city having a lawsuit of somebody trying to skirt the situation, and we just put off that big chunk and start over here, where there's plenty of width, there's driveway, there's, all the other graveled area, whereas there's not a building that you're locked into. This is all you're going to get through to the next section. So if I needed to make another, to change it to August, just skip that section so that we, fix what's got to be fixed and keep moving, not so that we lose any money.
Yeah,
So if I make a new motion if I make a new motion to skip that section for now, replace what's immediate, continue on the boardwalk that is doable so they don't stop everything, but at least that section that is more of a cluster, too hard to fix without ripping things up and moving things and getting things put back down during the rush of season. So amend a new motion to skip tail fins, continue on, replace what needs to be fixed, and then by mid-August, do tail fins, whether they like it or not, or the crowds are still in, pull up tables and stuff, at least get through most of the season. That would be my motion for the second option.
Have a motion.
Second it for discussion, but I'd like to hear some of y'all that are more familiar with that area or construction, I'd like to hear y'all's input.
let me just step in here. I think that this motion is similar enough to the last one that under Robert's rules, probably really this would be a motion to reconsider. Let me suggest an alternative because it sounds like there's still some questions relating to this, and there might be time to simply have staff look into this issue a little bit more, and we can address it at the next meeting. So I might suggest tabling this matter or continuing it to the next meeting at this time.
You can't table it.
I can't, but it'd be my suggestion if the council would be so inclined.
If I table this till the next meeting, can city staff continue around that section to keep moving and leave that for this moment? Can you go to the next section of boards?
We have not started AJ's yet. All the new boardwalk that you've been looking at is all in front of Galati's. AJ's will be starting any day now.
All right, then I'll table this, and I strongly recommend everybody on council in the next 2 weeks before the next meeting, go eyeball it and have an idea of what it really looks like between there, here, and there.
So if you'd like, you can make a motion to continue it to the next
I'll make a
meeting.
motion to continue this to the next meeting.
Second. Take a vote.
Will the staff be examining the integrity of what remains in that same time period?
I think that's the intent of the motion, is staff to provide additional information.
Ayes have it, so moved.
All right, on to something that's probably a little bit easier to handle, and I'm going to ask Joey if he'll address this. The helicopter flight pattern, I think this Sunday when the rain kindly subsided and the helicopters really got busy, I had several emails, and I live right by the airport, so I felt the helicopters not flying in any kind of pattern, and certainly at the 200 foot, not 500. Were you able to find out from those folks that you've been working with, Joey, some clarification on what they're supposed to be doing with these helicopters?
Well, I did reach out after I seen this complaint. They are supposed to fly over the beaches 1,000 feet out to the south and 500 feet above the water line. They do say up to. It doesn't have to be precise. That is over our beaches. So they will be monitoring that. And then I did reach out also for the complaints over the houses. They're supposed to maintain that same clearance. They did fly out of the north due to the winds. I'm waiting on further clarification on that.
Okay, thank you. That was the Kelly Plantation. I think that was the folks that had emailed us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the livery vessels, I know that they're coming up on their deadline date, Joey, so can you please clarify of the livery vessel, those issues, how many have been issued as far as permits? How many of those livery companies? I know there's, what, 10?
stand by. I know we've issued 3 so far. I can tell you exactly how many applied if you just give me 1 second.
And while you're looking on the Emerald Grand parking, one of the library vessel owners has had parking in the Emerald Grand for the last 17 years, and they've been told, you have to hold off. We've already got parking permits issued to the other kiosks, which are within the last 5 years. So I'm trying to figure out, how did the kiosk get parking approved before the library vessel that's been year after year after year?
That I'd have to confer with the planning department, the planning division, to find out what's going on there.
If you can get back to me and get back to council in the next meeting, because we're about out of time for them to start getting issued citations.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. King?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Just one quick thing. I was thinking about the, Dr. Ramswell, the beautification of the boxes that you were talking about, the artwork, and I saw your list of, and I remember a couple of them, but are we going to keep that to Destin local businesses exclusively, or or not just local business, but local entities?
Nothing's set, so this is the time to weigh in or send in your suggestions or voice your opinion.
Yeah, I think, I love the idea. I think it's awesome. It reminds me of some places that I've seen that have some beautification efforts like that. And I think if we could keep it to uniquely Destin things, I'd like to see my wife have one, put popsicles all over one. I think that would be cool. But, distinctly local things, like one with a bunch of mingos on it or something would be cool. So anyway, just a thought. That's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, sir. First, wanted to send out a congratulations to the Destin Middle School dance team who won a national championship at their recent competition. It's not an easy feat, so congratulations to them. I also wanted to just say thank you to our staff, IT, Matthew, or the whole team, or whoever was doing the lightning strike situation, the servers and all that stuff. I mean, thank you all for... Hopefully, I'm not sure if like Lance brings y'all anything at midnight or coffee, but hopefully there's something that you guys get when you're up here all 24 hours. But I appreciate all y'all's hard work. The Calhoun Zerby project, I'm just not sure if it's a grant question or web, but is that project, if I recall correctly, is it grant money that we're doing the Zerby Calhoun sidewalk? No?
It's city funds. It's city funds. Capital improvement project.
Is there any grant money on that areas over there? Okay. So the extra money that we save it's not grant. It's coming back to us.
That's real city money.
Okay.
That project was on a kind of a top 10 list in the TPO's long-range transportation plans for years, and it never really kind of moved up the rankings. So the city decided to take it on themselves.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, because for some reason I was thinking there was grant money, then I had some ideas, but no worries. Any update on a consultant, whoever we're looking at hiring to do a survey on the parking for harbor properties that we asked to hire or asked to have somebody do?
Lewis is not here tonight. I am not aware of an update, but I'll be happy to find out and give that to council.
Okay.
It could be part of the capacity study, but I think
It wasn't supposed to be part of the capacity study. I think it was an outside thing that we asked specifically about parking.
I can't answer that one, Webb, if you'd like.
Sure, love it.
So we did hire Baskerville Donovan to assist in reviews, and they are helping us do those reviews.
Do they have is there a goal or a projection of what they're looking at, like to provide after the reviews, their findings?
So that is exactly the way it works. So when we get in the livery application, we have an internal process, and then we send it to Baskerville Donovan for review. They review DOs and parking studies or whatever we give them, and then they submit that back to us with their findings.
So just to clarify, but you just said something about livery. This was specifically about I think, any and all businesses on the harbor, restaurants, not just livery vessel application, parking.
Yeah,
So,
that's
okay.
correct. So it takes into account all of the BTRs, I'm sorry, yeah,
Okay.
that is exactly correct. So it is really just to help us manage all of those parking, I don't know
Sure.
the right words.
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure that it wasn't just
Yes.
we're doing the pontoons and stuff like that. Next meeting, I'd like to get an update status kind of on the airport road curb. I know it's been an ongoing thing for many years. Myself, actually on a committee previously, started talking about that curve a long time ago. And I know that there has been a lot of back and forth on some things before we were up here and even now. So I just, heads up, I guess I'd really like to get some firm understanding of what's happening out there, because I hate to see, I don't want to be the reactive type of situation. Somebody's on the sidewalk and gets ran over or something due to an accident out there because we're waiting 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it is, for an outcome out there. So I'm looking forward to talking about that next meeting. And that's
Mr.
it.
Schmidt, you actually reminded me of something. Do you mind if I interject before I lose my train of thought? Tuffy Dixon, when he was up here, was all about the derelict vessels. And it's been brought to my attention that there are now 4 out in the middle of the harbor. Could y'all please look into that? One of them, I guess they refer to as the bird boat, and it stinks really bad. And like 2 of them broke free and floated out and almost hit docks over the past weekend. So please take a look at those 4 derelict vessels and determine what we can do and when.
Yeah, be happy to do so. And I think, if I may, Joey, I think you have an update on that livery vessel question?
I'm sorry, it was right in front of my eyeballs. It's 11, total 11 have applied, and 8 are under review. 3 of the 11 were approved. That's 298 vessels total that are under review and approved. Out of the 3 that were approved, that's 18 jet skis and 39 pontoons for right now.
Of those 3, have they gotten their certificate of business, or is that still coming? Have they not physically?
Those 3
gotten-
should have. The one just got the final, I believe it was today, this morning or Friday. I could double check. They should have their stickers.
Thank you, Joey.
Then, Mr. Schmidt, how about our land use attorney?
No, I don't really have anything other than, I'll just add to what Joey was just saying. Just as an FYI to council, staff has been corresponding with the livery vessel businesses and giving them courtesy reminders of the upcoming date, because we do plan to have code compliance start taking action after the May 1st if they have not applied. And so we're encouraging them to not wait for the last minute, and we have been sending out multiple reminders in that regard.
Thank you, Kim.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
All right, before we wrap this one up, we've got final opportunity for public comment for anybody that'd like to come up to the podium. Go ahead. You get 3 minutes.
I just want to bring up the black
Name
poles.
and
Sandy
address.
Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail. The black poles we've been told it's 5G. However, those poles have been in the city of Destin for many years. They started out on Crystal Beach and where all the condos are. Those are really collectors, and then they feed to the main tower. No company has improved or added to their main towers. So they're still collecting the wads of cell phone information, and it's not going anywhere. Even the guys that erected them in my neighborhood, that's why they're every 300 feet. So if there's something that the city can do about getting the cell companies to erect more of the larger towers to intake all of the smaller, that would help tremendously. I know since the one that's gone up across the street from my house might service is terrible. I have to stand outside now to use my cell phone. It's crazy. And I'm sure you're having the same thing. You're in the same neighborhood. So it really, I don't know. They tell us 5G, and then in the newspaper the other day they said that we were too rural for 5G. 5G was only going to go in major cities, so we're not getting 5G. Well, what are all these collectors collecting? If they can't go to the main tower and be filtered, then it's really kind of strange. But anyway, thank you for what you're doing. And Mr. Destin, I think you were right on the boardwalk. That structure that's down there in front of that one restaurant, when the boardwalk easement was approved, that structure was not there. The structure was not approved. I don't know how or why, but we looked at the minimum of any boardwalk passage be 8 to 10 feet. And at that particular entity, it's about 4. So I'm not sure how or when or how that got approved or why it's there. I think Mr. Braden, I asked Mr. Braden because he grew up right there on that hill, and I said, was there ever a place down there when you were growing up? And he said, nope.
I went in and asked for that clarification.
So-
He has a development order dated 2018 signed by the city.
He was developed long before 2018, so that's why I'm saying there's something to that, and I don't know, but it's going to have to go with the easement agreement versus the development order versus whatever, so I would suggest somebody look into that, please.
If I recall, those easement agreements not only didn't allow them, they prohibited them. Now, how you got that in development order, funky things were going on back then. So we need to review the easement document. And if it says he can do it, then he's good.
All right.
Noel, I believe that was you that said that you were going to put together some sort of map of where we have those utility poles, or the cell towers, I mean. Could you look at what Ms. Trammell was describing, and is there any way to differentiate between this is a collector tower and it just does 3G, this is a 4G tower? Whatever information you can try to collect on that would be helpful, because it would be great if instead of having a 3G and a 4G every 200 feet, you could have just a 5G every 500 feet, or whatever it is, as long as we're in compliance. But she makes a good point, and that builds on what I was bringing up earlier.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall, she's kind of right. These were just like little booster towers, and the majority of them, if not all, were all permitted or issued under AT&T. So these are all just specific to a certain company too, so if you have a different network, then your phone still ain't gonna work, because these were all for AT&T, but.
Noel, I have AT&T, and that little black pole that's over by what she's talking about, I have to stand outside and hold my phone up sometimes. So no, AT&T hasn't done us any favors.
Yeah, but I'll give you a list. We'll bring back a list, and I can see if I can get some help putting it on a map so you kind of can see where they're
Yeah,
at.
and who owns what, and I mean, if we can consolidate somehow, I think that's going to be a big benefit. Are you using the gavel on me? That's unacceptable. Okay.
They got their hammers tonight.
Should have
My
brought your
fingers
hammer
are
with you.
frozen because it's 50 degrees in here.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to talk? James, you got anybody? Ray? Meeting adjourned.